Hi everyone, my name is Chelsea Stroh, and I'm really excited to talk to you today about reports inside of Recruiterbox. Before we dive in, today we're going to spend about 10 minutes talking about the new report layout, and then we'll save some time at the end for any questions that may come up. Today's webinar is going to be a broad overview of the new reports inside of Recruiterbox. If you have any specific questions, please feel free to reach out to our team at support@Recruiterbox.com. We're always around and we love to help out. So before we get started, let's take a step back and talk about why is reporting so important. So for some of you, you might have a large team that does report. For some of you, you might have a large team who does your recruiting, and for others, it might be that it's a side task that you do only when you have someone to hire. So in either case, it's really important to justify your recruiting efforts. So if you have a large team, you might need to justify hiring additional people to help with the hiring. If you're someone like me who hiring is a side job when you need to hire somebody and not your main focus, you need to justify the time you're taking away from your regular job for the time that you're hiring. So being able to justify recruiting efforts is a really important reason to do reporting. It also lets you know what processes are working and helps you identify any bottlenecks that might be present. Every process can always be improved. So being able to identify those bottlenecks, see where the processes aren't working smoothly, and then put a fix in place and watch the reports to see how the data changes is really important. Reports also let you get an overview of what's happening in your team's productivity. So maybe you have certain people who are just crushing it and you'd really like to reward them. Or maybe there are other people who are falling a little bit behind in their tasks and you'd like to coach them on some better things that they can do to stay on top of everything. Being able to know what's happening for your team is a really important reason to run reports. All right, so what have we changed in reports? So in Recruiterbox, we've had all of these reports for a while, but we realized that people weren't using them. They weren't using them for a number of reasons, and that's what we've solved. The first reason is that they were pretty difficult to understand. They weren't approachable, and it was really difficult to figure out what exactly you were looking at with the data. Each report also had its own formatting, which was a little silly when we went back and looked at it, but the reports had been built over time and different people had put their own spin on them. So everything was in different places and in different formatting, and it was difficult to know what you were looking at. There were also very limited filters, and they were kind of random. Some reports had more filters than others, depending on who had built the report. So we standardized that as well. Also, only some data could be downloaded, so it seemed like randomly there were download buttons, but they weren't consistent. So we wanted to make it so that you could always know you could download your data as well. So we fixed all of those things, and that's what we're excited to show you today. Today, we're going to talk about the new layout, the new filters, the way you can customize the reports, and how you can view the data just a little bit deeper with some slider views, and then of course, how you can download the data. All right, so the very first thing is a full page layout. So this is something that we changed, this is one of the first things we changed in the reports. Before in the reports, there was this block on the left side that allowed you to navigate back to different reports. We learned that it wasn't super helpful and it was really just taking up realty space that you could be using for actually viewing report data. So we took that away and made the reports a full page. We also added a horizontal scroll bar. So if you add more columns or filters to the report and it gets wider, you're able to scroll horizontally to see the additional information. I think this makes it look a lot cleaner as well in the reports. Next, we added a uniform layout across all of the reports. So as I mentioned before, our reports have been built over time, and different people had put their own spin on the design, but it meant that it was kind of confusing because each time you changed reports, you kind of had to reacclimate to where the data was in the report. So we fixed that with this new setup where the filters go across the top. So that's the very first thing across the top. You can set your filters. What data do you want to show in the report? Directly below that, you can select and sort what columns you'd like to be seen. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes, but basically it lets you say, okay, what do I want shown in this report? In the middle of the report is a graphical representation of the data. The graph varies depending on what report you're looking at, but it allows you to see the graphical representation of whatever the data is in the report. Lastly, at the very bottom is going to be the additional details. So where you're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the report, what numbers are shown, and all of that information. So that's where you can find it, is at the very bottom of the report. You'll find this uniform layout across all of the visual reports now. We've also added custom filters. So before on the reports, the filters were fairly ad hoc. With this setup, you can customize exactly what filters you'd like to be shown on the reports. So the reports all have the same basic filters, and then there's a few that are specific to a report and show additionally. But each of these filters on the left, as you click on them, they drill down to more options like I've shown on the right. So for example, your opening status, you can pull different opening statuses, and this allows you to see maybe all of your draft openings, all of your archived openings, or whatever you'd like to see on the reports. We've also added some new filters, such as filtering by city. So this lets you filter by all your openings that are in a particular city, state, or country. And I think that's a really handy report if you hire across the globe. The next thing that we added is maybe the thing that I was most excited about, and that's a date selector. This is something that is probably one of the most requested things that we had in regards to reports. And it was awesome customers like you guys that had requested this. And I was so excited. I literally jumped out of my chair and was jumping up and down when the team showed me this. So in the past, you only had the option to filter the last 7, 30, or 60 days. Not super helpful if you want to drill down and maybe see a quarter's worth of data or all of the data that has come in since the beginning of the year. We've added this specific date range where you can specify the exact date you'd like to pull the data from. This is added to all of the reports now, and it's under the Candidates Added option. I think it's a pretty cool one. Next, we talked about the custom columns. So this allows you to specify which columns are displayed on the report. Obviously, the columns are different depending on what report you're looking at, but you can drill down and maybe uncheck some of the ones that aren't helpful so they're not cluttering your view, or add some additional ones if they're useful to you. I think this really helps you customize to your own hiring workflow. In addition to customizing the columns, you can customize which column you're sorting by. So it might be that one of the columns' data is more important to you than others, and you'd like to sort by that column. Then you can also additionally choose if you'd like that to be ascending or descending. Another thing that I'm really excited about is this deeper dive with your slider views. So the slider view is this thing you're seeing on the right side of the picture where the candidate information is kind of sliding out from the right side. This is something we added because a lot of this data was kind of ambiguous. So there's a number, but you don't know what's driving that number. So in my example here, there was a number 5 for reviews initiated, but what 5 candidates were causing that number to be 5? I want to drill down and be able to see those candidates specifically. So we added the clickable numbers that open into the slider views. And I think this really enhances the reports a whole lot. So you're going to have the clickable numbers, and then you also sometimes will see a little graphical button beside the numbers as well. So you'll have an option to view the data driving the numbers or a graph of just those numbers. I think both of those are really helpful when you're just doing a deeper dive into the data. Lastly, we've added the option to download anything, which is really exciting. So the download as Excel button displays at the top of every single report now. So you can download the entire report as an Excel document. And then you can also download those slider views. So I'll flip back over to the slide before where I was talking about this right slider that shows up when you click on the number. You can download the candidates that are just showing in that slider. This to me is a huge game changer. All the time we have people who ask for reports about candidates in a certain stage or candidates from a certain source, et cetera, et cetera. And in the past, the only way to do that was to download the comprehensive candidate report, which includes all the candidates, and then sort by the column you're after, and then delete the rest of the data out. That's not an issue anymore because now you can come into the visual reports, you can find the candidates you're specifically looking for, maybe in a certain stage, a certain status, a certain opening, a certain source. Click on the slider view and then download just the ones that are in that slider view. This is something that I was maybe second most excited about because the date selector was probably my most excited thing. But I do think this is a really awesome feature and I really look forward to you guys getting to try it out. All right, so just to recap, we talked about the new layout, we talked about the filters and the columns, being able to sort. We talked about our slider views, which is something that I'm really excited about, and then the ability to download as well. The new reports to me are a big game changer in the way that the data is displayed and how you can pull it out of the system. If you have any questions about pulling reports for your own specific team, please reach out to us at support@Recruiterbox.com. We're always around and we love to help out.